And some cinnamon. That is good. Tasty. Hello, welcome back to my kitchen. Today we are making rice pudding, which might seem like a super simple recipe on like face value, which it is easy to execute, but like the science behind it is kind of amazing. The rice is being submerged in like the milk, and it's like hydrating, it's gelatinizing, and then those starch like molecules within the grain are being pulled out into the liquid around it, turning it into a pudding consistency, which if you've ever made pudding before, obviously you need like milk and starch, but you also typically need some kind of like egg yolk to like bind it all together, and then you have to like temper that, and it's kind of finicky to do, but this is just rice, milk, on the stove, stir, done. Like there's no tempering, there is no like egg yolks. So I was just kind of impressed by that aspect of things. And the recipe that I'm making claims to be a like copy, like or like competitor to Cozy Shack, however that wants to be phrased, which funny enough was on sale at the grocery store this week. So I will be doing a like head-to-head battle between what I make and Cozy Shack, which they're not sponsoring me, but if they want to, hit me up. You do say gluten-free on your packaging, so I respect you, even if you don't give me free rice pudding. So I'm excited to kind of go through that. I am also going to link the Serious Eats recipe because it has a ton of information on like that science aspect of things, which I will be definitely stealing some of their facts that I remember and I'm gonna be sharing with you. But if you want a like more holistic breakdown of all of it, go read that. I'm not gonna cover everything that's in there because I don't remember all of it, nor did I read all of it. I really just read like the dairy, the rice, just those two sections out of like, I feel like there was like 5. So if anything I say today, like on the science aspect, kind of like whets your appetite, pun intended, go give that recipe a read because it will have a lot more information that you'll probably enjoy. So why don't we run through the ingredients and then get into cooking. 6 cups of milk, half a cup of sugar, half a teaspoon of salt, half a cup of long grain rice, and 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. The first step is going to be to combine the milk, the sugar, and the salt in a large pan on the stovetop at medium heat. We're gonna bring that to a boil and stirring, not like constantly, but fairly often, because you don't want milk to just sit there because it'll burn, it'll like caramelize. A lot of bad things will happen, so just kind of keep it mixing and mingling, and then you'll be good to go. And this is a good opportunity to share some interesting facts that I learned from researching this recipe, because obviously within milk you have lots of options. You have like whole milk, you have 2% milk, and you have skim milk, which is just water lying to you. And then you also have half and half and like heavy cream. So of those, like which one is like the best option to go with, which spoiler alert, it's whole milk. But the like gut intuition, because you're making something kind of dairy based, you'd think like, oh, like heavy cream is usually the better way to go. Like if you're making ice cream, you use heavy cream. Wrong, not in this case, because you're reducing it down so much on the stovetop, not in this step, but the next step, that if you used heavy cream, there's so much fat to water ratio that it just like messes everything up. So you actually want more water in there to be able to like kind of like, I guess, evaporate off. And also there's some other fact that I can't fully remember like the details of, but with rice, if you cook it in something that has fat in it, the fat will actually coat the rice and prevent the liquid from getting in, which is a very important part of making rice pudding. So the more fat you have, like the less the rice will actually cook. So all that boils down to is to use whole milk. 2% they said is like a decent alternative, but whole milk is what you should go with. And like don't use like half and half or heavy cream, which gut instinct would be like, oh, those would probably make it better. Wrong. So let's do this step, which is essentially just mixing everything up together and then bring it to a boil. Then we'll move on to the next one. So the second step is where we're gonna add in the rice. Well, we're gonna reduce the temperature down to low. Then we're gonna add in the rice and then kind of leave it at like a simmer for 50 to 60 minutes. And this is another one of those like interesting little factoid points, because you can have cooked or uncooked rice along with like long grain, short grain, or medium grain, which I don't know why I said them in that order. Apparently like the best option is to use cooked rice, but the recipe that I found, I'll explain later why I picked it, but it called for dry rice, so I'm just following that. But apparently using cooked rice is the better way to go. So we're not doing quite that, but we'll see. We'll see at the end how it stacks up. I'm assuming it's still gonna be good because this person took the time and effort to write this recipe. I would hope somebody wouldn't do that with a bad recipe. Another little thing, which, come in here. I've already done this step, so don't tell anybody. But it's 50 to 60 minutes and it's supposed to be a consistency of yogurt is what you're going for. After 50 minutes, mine was not looking like yogurt, so I got a little worried. So I just turned up the heat just a little bit, and then I stirred constantly. I just stood there stirring it, which I don't know if I recorded or not because I was a little panicked. It did one of my favorite things with a recipe, where it kind of like 180s, and it just went from like liquid to solid, just like magic happened. And so if you're at 50 minutes and it's still pretty much milk, turn up the heat a little bit, stir constantly so you don't let anything burn, and hopefully after 10 minutes of doing that, you're good to go. All right. So that's how you do that step, and I will. I don't know how to transition, so just watch me do that, and then we'll do the next step. So the third step, and this is where my decision for why I chose this recipe versus some of the other ones that I found, like specifically the Serious Eats one, which I've talked a fairly good bit about, but I didn't follow that path for this reason, is to add the vanilla extract. Well, remove from heat, I can't remember if I said that already, remove from heat and then add the vanilla extract. And so I chose this recipe because it specifically calls for vanilla extract, versus the other recipes call for like vanilla paste or the vanilla bean, like the pods. I don't want to spend like $20+ making rice pudding, like unless it's the best rice pudding that I've ever eaten, and even then $20 might be pushing it. Actually, it would be pushing it, not might, it would be pushing it. I wanted one that was like designed to use vanilla extract, versus those other recipes say like, well, you could use vanilla extract if you don't have those, but we both know that they'll be judging us. And also it's just like, that's more of like, you can substitute vanilla extract for those things, but it's like, it's different. Like it's not gonna be the exact same. So that's why I went with this one. But yeah, so then we also need to like let it cool. Obviously you can eat it warm if you want. I prefer it chilled. Well, actually I've never had it warm, so maybe I'll do a little taste test, but I will let it chill fully because that's kind of how I grew up having it. Plus that's a more even comparison to the Cozy Shack. So I'll see you in a little bit because it's gonna take some time to cool. And in this corner, the reigning champ, Cozy Shack. But the up-and-coming contender, Aaron's Rice Pudding. They will battle it out in the battle of the century. Fight! My rice pudding, which this is gonna be interesting because obviously, ooh, that kind of separated. I'm not eating all of this, so it calls for half a cup of milk to be stirred in right before you serve. But I'm not serving all of it, so I'm going to try and guess an amount. I'm going to actually do like 3 tests. I'm going to have some of this straight up. I'm gonna have some of this, and then I'm gonna mix some of this with milk to see how that all kind of breaks out, because I don't want to have my poor ratio throw the competition. So let's give this a go. That is quite good. Okay, so like straight out the gate, mine, which one of the downsides of using dry rice versus cooked rice was that it is a little, I think they say like it gets stale in the refrigerator, which effectively it just kind of like, it gives you a bit of like a bite, like the rice kind of hardens a little bit. And I'm definitely tasting that. Like when I take a bite, it's not like gelatinous. There's a little bit of bite to it, versus the Cozy Shack is effectively like one kind of smooth texture. You definitely can, you know that there's rice in there, but it's all very kind of like one. I kind of like the flavor of mine more than the Cozy Shack. I definitely kind of can taste that vanilla extract flavor to it, versus theirs is a little bit more mellow. But at the same time, that mellow almost feels watery compared to the richness that's coming from my homemade one. So overall, in my opinion so far, I'm kind of leaning more towards my homemade one. I don't know in terms of like money, like how much mine, because obviously I have more here just looking at it, but I'd assume that mine is cheaper because it's just milk and rice, and both those were fairly cheap. Versus I already forgotten how much I spent on this. So taste, price, and mouthfeel, that's like are like big factors. And so far I think mine is winning, except for the mouthfeel is going a little bit more towards the Cozy Shack, but maybe that'll get fixed by adding some milk. So let's find out. So all of that should have a half a cup. So this amount should have, say, a tablespoon. I don't know. Making a mess. I mean, honestly, it didn't really, well, I guess it's kind of like thinning it out a little bit. So I can see like why you might want this, but I honestly like that kind of like texture. It definitely has more of an appearance to this one now. So let's find out. It honestly, I mean, it doesn't help with the rice being a little like bitey, but it mellows out that vanilla extract kind of like aftertaste a little bit. And the consistency is almost like spot on to this one now. If I just had the rice be that same like gelatinous texture. So maybe the same recipe, reduce the milk down to like have the same ratio and use pre-cooked rice, I think it would be spot on. Which obviously at that point you're pretty much using one of the other recipes that I looked at because they used cooked rice. But honestly, delicious. I'm very happy with this. And I'll probably be making this in the future because, I don't know, like this, I don't think it's that expensive, but actually, let's see, what's the sugar? 15 grams. That feels like a lot. I don't know how many grams of sugar are in half a cup. And then divide that out by like 5. So we'll see, I'll put that someplace if the sugar amounts, because obviously a lot of the benefits of like cooking things homemade is they're usually like healthier. I'm sure that there's a lot less chemicals and whatnot in this. Well, actually, okay, so this does use eggs. So that's kind of interesting. So they do a bit more of like a pudding situation versus mine. So if you don't want to buy your own, you can make your own, and in my opinion, it's just as good, if not better. And it's kind of fun to make. Like it's pretty chill, not a whole lot of like stress involved in making this one, as long as you don't walk off. So it does require you to kind of stay present. But I'm a fan. I liked it. I'm happy with this. I will definitely be making this again. So on that note, bye Mom, still not dead. See you.